In a village utterly devastated by a battle against the demon lord, a young boy named Lloyd stands alone amidst the smoldering ruins. The haunted look in his eyes reveals the profound trauma he has endured. He is discovered by a woman, Merlin, who is immediately overwhelmed with guilt, knowing that her own negligence was the cause of the catastrophe. Determined to atone, she brings Lloyd into her home, offering him a new life and an education in the art of magic. Merlin's teaching style is nothing short of brutal. For his first lesson, the flame spell, she offers a brief demonstration, then informs Lloyd that if he can't replicate it himself, he won't be getting any dinner. Miraculously, by nightfall, Lloyd succeeds in producing a tiny, flickering flame. Yet, when he presents it to his master, instead of praise, she extinguishes it with a single breath. She then snaps her fingers, engulfing him in an intimidating wall of fire while scolding him for his improper technique. Still, she allows him to eat, as he did manage to learn the spell. The next day, his training shifts to water magic. Merlin provides another perfunctory demonstration, sweeping her foot along the ground to create a small spout of water. When it's Lloyd's turn, he manages to slightly dampen the ground and looks quite pleased with himself. Merlin, however, is not impressed. To show him what real water magic looks like, she mercilessly dumps a massive torrent of water on him. As time passes, Lloyd's training carries on. He puts forth his best effort to learn new spells, while Merlin dishes out harsh punishments whenever he falls short. Surprisingly, her tough methods pay off. By the time winter arrives, Lloyd's magic has improved so much that he can summon a detailed snow sculpture of Merlin with little effort. It is a kind gesture, and although she secretly appreciates it, she refuses to show it. Instead, she takes control of the snow sculpture, uses it to grab Lloyd, and dramatically enlarges it to demonstrate true mastery over ice magic. The sculpture eventually collapses, causing Lloyd to fall. By now, however, the two share a strong, unspoken understanding. As soon as he pulls himself out of the snow, Lloyd tells Merlin he'll put more effort into his magic, and she responds with a rare smile of approval. Sometime later, one morning, Merlin is sprawled out on her couch, nursing a hangover. Lloyd comes by to check on her, and she groans that she feels awful. Wanting to help, Lloyd places his hand on her forehead and uses his healing magic to ease her hangover. Within seconds, Merlin feels significantly better. She sits up, gives Lloyd a hug, and thanks him before promptly declaring it's time to resume his training. This routine is shattered when Merlin receives a book that deeply worries her. As she goes to put it aside, she accidentally drops it in front of Lloyd. He stoops to pick it up, and the moment his hands touch it, a rush of overwhelming knowledge floods his mind, causing him to collapse. A stunned Merlin realizes what's happened. He possesses the traits of the prophesied hero. She carries him to bed, resolute. If he truly is the one, she cannot allow him to repeat her past mistakes. With a gentle kiss on his forehead, she casts a spell, its soft glow lingering as she seals away the true extent of his phenomenal power, refusing to let him grow arrogant as she once did. The following day, Lloyd's training continues. Merlin brings him into the forest to practice his white magic. He focuses his power on a single fruit, making it ripen. Impressed, his master compliments him but reminds him there is still much to learn. Placing her hand on the tree, she casts her own magic, causing the entire tree to flourish with vibrant greenery. That night, while studying, Lloyd comes across a mention of ancient magic. The moment he brings it up, Merlin's expression darkens, and she firmly tells him he doesn't need to learn anything about it. Her lessons in vigilance are equally severe. During a drill that involves summoning a magic staff instantly, Lloyd's slow reaction earns him a swift strike from Merlin's own staff, as she sternly warns him to never grow complacent. For his final major test, Merlin takes Lloyd deep into the wilderness, hands him a knife, and tells him he has 1 week to survive and find his way home alone. Before he can protest, she disappears. Soon after, a huge wolf emerges and attacks. Lloyd flees for his life, climbing a tree to escape. He doubts that a white mage like him can defeat such a beast and resolves to navigate home carefully. As night falls, he studies his spells, trying to improve them. Days later, a snapped branch underfoot alerts a massive spider to his location. Heart pounding, he bolts, casting a haste spell to surge ahead of the creature. After a long and exhausting journey, he finally reaches home, only to collapse from fatigue at the door. When Merlin finds him, she is genuinely proud of his resilience. Several more years pass. Lloyd, now a young man, has essentially finished his training, though Merlin still ropes him into helping her create new spells due to his exceptional talent for magic development. Lloyd is happy she finally sees him as an equal, but he hasn't slept properly in days. The relentless demands are wearing on him, and his fascination with town life grows. He decides to take bold action. The next morning, Merlin finds his room empty. Based on the book left open on his desk, she knows exactly where he has gone. Meanwhile, Lloyd reaches the town and is instantly impressed by the bustling activity. After buying a simple loaf of bread, he realizes he's broke and needs work fast. Just then, a poster advertising for adventurers flies into his face. Without hesitation, Lloyd decides to apply, all while a cloaked man secretly tails him. Lloyd joins the S-rank party Blade of the Ogre and heads to a castle with his new teammates leader Alan, Shield Maiden Riina, and Mage Maya to battle a huge Cyclops. When the fight gets tough, Lloyd silently casts an advanced stat buff spell, instantly revitalizing everyone. None of them realize it was his doing. The archer lands a shot right in the Cyclops' eye, and Riina is stunned by how effortlessly she blocks one of its punches. Alan, however, doesn't question his sudden increase in power and confidently finishes off the Cyclops, convinced it was all his own skill. Only Riina appears to suspect Lloyd had something to do with their unexpected boost. With the Cyclops defeated, the party returns to town, where Alan is celebrated as a hero. The reward is enormous, but Alan hands Lloyd a mere 5 gold coins, claiming the low amount is due to him being a rookie D-rank adventurer. When Alan suggests a toast, Lloyd excuses himself. The party's mage, Maya, is offended, but Alan tells her it's fine, remarking that Lloyd barely contributed anyway. Back at Merlin's home, the mysterious cloaked man appears. He informs her that Lloyd has joined a famous party. Relieved, Merlin reflects that it was time for him to explore the world, as long as he doesn't grow overconfident like she once did. The man asks if she still carries regrets. Merlin's expression twists with bitterness as she recalls her mistake. She never foresaw the Demon Lord's willingness to self-destruct just to obtain a grimoire. That miscalculation led to the destruction of the village and her own death. Her companion, Sybil, managed to bring everyone back using forbidden ancient magic, but at the cost of his own life. The guilt has haunted her ever since. Back in his adventures, Lloyd continues to quietly support the party, casting buffs that give them an edge and maintain a flawless win streak. One night, Alan barges into Riina's room and finds her studying. She confesses her confusion. Monster attacks haven't been hitting her shield as hard. Alan agrees, assuming it's his own natural skill kicking in. Riina points out that his lack of training makes the sudden strength boost nonsensical. The next day, the party is hired to hunt an earth golem that killed several guards. They trace it to a cave, where Lloyd's support allows them to make quick work of it. However, a demon summons another golem from the rocks above. Lloyd examines the demon and notices it's using a staff embedded with a magic stone. Knowing the danger, he takes command, telling the archer to shoot the demon and instructing Maya to teleport the staff to him. As soon as it's in his hands, he seals its magic. Alan grows incensed that Lloyd is giving orders. Frustrated, he rushes in to land the killing blow himself. Lloyd, refusing to let him die, enhances his own speed and shoves Alan aside just before the golem crushes him. Instead of gratitude, Alan snaps at Lloyd for interfering before delivering the final blow. Once they return to town, a furious Alan fires Lloyd for being a nuisance, accusing him of being lazy and never contributing. Conditioned by years of Merlin's criticism, Lloyd instinctively assumes the problem is him. He accepts being kicked out without arguing. For the next 3 days, he searches for a new party, but most already have a white mage. Dejected, he stands in the guild hall just as a girl desperately asks the receptionist for a white mage. The receptionist points toward Lloyd. The moment the girl spots him, she rushes over, grabs his hand, and forcefully declares that he is joining her party. And that's the end of the first episode of Scooped Up by an S-ranked adventurer. Thank you so much for staying on this channel and watching our videos. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep you updated with our latest content. See you in the next video. This anime series begins by showing a battle scene in 1904 when the Empire of Japan was at war with the Russian Empire. a man named Seichai Sugimoto was seen leading the Japanese soldiers against the Russian forces. Sugimoto served as a private first class in the 1st Division of the Imperial Japanese Army. Sugimoto was feared for his savage fighting style and amazing toughness on the battlefield, earning the nickname Immortal Sugimoto. After the war, Sugimoto moved to Hokkaido and worked as a gold panner to make ends meet and to provide for Yumiko, the blind wife of his dead comrade, Toriji. One day, when Sugimoto is panning for gold in the river, he meets a drunken old man named Goto, who asks Sugimoto why he moved to Hokkaido and works hard to earn money. Goto argues that Sugimoto, who is a war veteran, should get a medal of appreciation and also wealth for his service. But Sugimoto was in Hokkaido and became a gold panner whose income was only enough to make ends meet. Sugimoto argues that he once beat up one of his superiors, which caused him to be discharged from the military and forced to move to Hokkaido. Goto then told him the story of Naparabo, a man who killed a group of Ainu and stole their trove of gold. Knowing that the police would soon arrest him, Naparabo rushed to hide the gold in a secret location. However, the police managed to catch Naparabo before he revealed the location of the gold to his accomplices. Naparabo was then thrown into a Bashiri prison and tortured by the police and military officers who wanted the gold. Despite the torture, Naparabo remained silent as he intended to use the gold for a more substantial purpose. Naparabo then tattooed the bodies of 24 death row prisoners who were in the same cell with him, with pieces of a map showing the location of the gold when put together. The police, knowing this, then gathered the prisoners whose bodies had been tattooed by Naparabo and intended to transfer them to another prison. Surprisingly, Naparabo had anticipated the transfer, as he had ordered the prisoners to escape when they were taken to another prison. As Naparabo had planned, the prisoners then attacked the police on the way to the other prison, until they finally managed to escape. Since then, many people have been hunting the tattooed prisoners for the piece of map that will lead them to the location of the abundant gold. However, Sugimoto didn't seem to believe Goto's story and thought Goto was making it up. An exhausted Sugimoto then sat by the river as he recalled the old days when he and his friend, Toriji, were on the battlefield against the Russian forces. At that time, Toriji planned to take Sugimoto to Hokkaido after the war ended and introduce Toriji to his wife, Yumiko, and his newborn son. Toriji told Sugimoto that Yumiko's vision was becoming blurred from time to time, and Toriji worried that one day Yumiko would be unable to see. Toriji planned to take Yumiko for treatment to the United States, but he needed a lot of money as the travel and medical expenses are very expensive. Therefore, Toriji intended to become a gold panner after the war ends, hoping to pay for his wife's treatment in the United States. Unfortunately, Toriji was killed in the war, so Sugimoto decided to provide Toriji's wife and son. In the present, Sugimoto wakes up from his reverie to find Goto pointing a gun at him. Goto realizes that he revealed too much about Naparabo and the gold, so he tries to kill Sugimoto. Upon learning that, Sugimoto assumed that Goto might be telling the true story, since the man really intended to kill him. However, Sugimoto, who used to be a tough soldier, can easily snatch the weapon and threaten Goto. Knowing that he couldn't defeat Sugimoto without his weapon, Goto chose to flee to the forest. Sugimoto, who thought that Goto might try to kill him again, rushed after Goto into the forest. Sugimoto walked through the forest warily, until he finally found Goto in a pile of snow and unconscious. Sugimoto, who found bare paw prints around the place, then rushed to get Goto's body out of the snow, trying to save him. But then, Sugimoto soon realized that Goto was dead after seeing the wounds from the bear attack all over his body. Concurrently, Sugimoto saw that Goto's back was covered in map-shaped tattoos, which indicated that the story about Naparabo was a true story and Goto was one of the prisoners whose bodies were tattooed by Naparabo. Sugimoto then picked up Goto's body, intending to take him home to study the tattoos on his body. But unexpectedly, a bear suddenly appeared and immediately attacked Sugimoto. At the same time, an Ainu girl, a Serpa, appeared on the scene and quickly shot a poisoned arrow that killed the bear. Sugimoto then thanked a Serpa and introduced himself. Knowing that a Serpa is of Ainu descent, Sugimoto then tells Asurpa about the Naparabo story told by Goto earlier while showing the tattoo on Goto's back. Sugimoto says that he intends to find the gold because he needs money to pay for Yumiko's treatment. Surprisingly, Asurpa turns out to know the story because her father was one of the victims killed by Naparabo. At night, Sugimoto and Asurpa built a bonfire to warm themselves up, although it was very risky because it could attract the attention of wild animals that hunted at night. Not long after, a bear suddenly appeared to attack Sugimoto and put out the campfire. While Sugimoto tries to fight off the bear, Asurpa takes her bow and arrow, preparing to shoot the bear. However, Asurpa had difficulty shooting her arrows without any light. Asurpa finally manages to shoot the bear with her poisoned arrow, but the bear was still able to get up and launch an attack on Sugimoto. Seeing this, Asurpa then orders her pet wolf, Ritar, to help Sugimoto while she prepares her poisoned arrows. When Ritar distracts the bear, Sugimoto grabs his rifle and shot the bear. However, the shot didn't work at all on the bear, who immediately pounced on Sugimoto and fell on him. Seeing this, Asurpa immediately rushes to Sugimoto to help him. Fortunately, Sugimoto manages to kill the bear with his knife, saving his life. Afterward, they built a campfire and Asurpa told Sugimoto about Naparabo, who had killed her father and several people from her village. Sugimoto then offers Asurpa to find the gold. Asurpa, who wanted to avenge the death of her father and the people in her village, finally agrees to cooperate with Sugimoto and find the gold. Sugimoto then skins Goto's body to retrieve a piece of the map tattooed on his back. He assumes that Naparabo might still be alive and in prison, as the police still needed him to get the gold. Therefore, Sugimoto promises to help Asurpa get revenge on the man. The next day, Sugimoto and Asurpa rush to the nearby town of Otaru to find information about the tattooed prisoners. While Sugimoto searches for information in the hot springs, Asurpa questions some townspeople on the side of the road. Asurpa shows them the tattoo patterns she has drawn on paper, but the residents claim that they have never seen anyone with that tattoo patterns. The man who owns the shop tries to chase Asurpa away because she's disturbing the customers who want to visit his shop. But then, Sugimoto arrives at the place and realizes that the shopkeeper knows something about the tattoo. Sugimoto then threatens the shop owner to give him information about the tattooed prisoners. Being threatened by Sugimoto, the man who owned the shop finally reveals that he had seen a man with such a tattoo in the forest. After getting the information, Sugimoto and Asurpa immediately head to the forest to find the man. While walking through the forest, Sugimoto realizes that someone is following them. Sugimoto set a trap to catch the stalker. After the stalker was caught, Sugimoto then asks why the man was stalking them. The man then reveals that he was one of the tattooed prisoners. Asurpa then asks the prisoner to take off his shirt, while she would draw the tattoo pattern on his body, so Sugimoto wouldn't have to kill the man and skin him. They then get into a conversation, and he reveals that someone has been killing the tattooed prisoners. However, before the man could explain further, he was suddenly shot dead from a distance. Realizing the danger, Sugimoto immediately protects Asurpa in case the shooter is after them. Sugimoto then grabs his rifle and returns fire. The shooter finally reveals himself and they engaged in a fierce fight, until Sugimoto finally manages to take the man down. After revealing his cloak, Sugimoto soon finds out that the shooter is Ogata, the sniper in the 7th Division. On the other hand, Ogata, who just found out that the man who had fought with him was Seichai Sugimoto, who was nicknamed the Immortal, then fights back and tries to escape from that place. But in the middle of his escape, Ogata suddenly slips and falls into a river. Later that night, the soldiers of the 7th Division, led by a man named Tokushiro Tsurumi, find Ogata cold and hypothermic. They rush to Ogata's rescue and take him back to the base for immediate medical treatment. The next day, Sugimoto and Asurpa capture a tattooed prisoner named Yashitake Shireishi, who is a master escape artist. Just like the previous prisoner, Sugimoto and Asurpa decide not to kill Shireishi and tie him up while they copied the tattoo patterns on his body. Afterward, Sugimoto and Asurpa hunt rabbits for lunch. However, when they return to the camp, they discover that Shiraishi has escaped. Sugimoto then asks Usurpa to stay at the camp, while he goes after Shiraishi. Not long after, Sugimoto finally catch up with Shiraishi, who is trying to escape through the frozen river. They got into a fight on the spot and accidentally caused the ice to crack, causing them to fall into the freezing river. Sugimoto and Shiraishi then decide to work together to build a campfire to warm themselves so they wouldn't get hypothermia. While warming themselves, Shiraishi tells Sugimoto about the tattooed prisoners who are led by a man named Hijikata Toshizo. Shiraishi reveals that Hijikata suddenly attacked the tattooed prisoners when they managed to escape from the police. After that, the tattooed prisoners became suspicious of each other and even killed each other to get the location of the gold, while some prisoners chose to hide from Hijikata or other prisoners who tried to kill them. Furthermore, Shiraishi told Sugimoto that Naparabo told the prisoners to go to Otaru City after they managed to escape. Shiraishi doesn't know why Naparabo told the prisoners to go to Otaru City, so he intends to investigate. After telling him that, Shiraishi left Sugimoto. The next day, Sugimoto and Usurpa continued their search for the tattooed prisoners by walking through the forest while hunting for lunch. They finally arrive near a bear den, where Usurpa tells Sugimoto that her father once entered a bear den and killed the bear. Her father was desperate to enter the bear's den because the Ainu people have a belief that bears will not kill humans who enter their dens. Not long after, Usurpa sees something shimmering in the distance. Sugimoto immediately realizes that the glittering object was a pair of binoculars, which indicates that someone is watching them. Sugimoto, knowing that he might be targeted by the 7th Division, rushes Usurpa down the hill. Sugimoto then asks Usurpa to find a safe hiding place, while he would try to distract the soldiers of the 7th Division who were coming down the hill to catch him. However, a private first class of the 7th Division named Genjuro Tanigaki manages to find Usurpa hiding in a tree. When Tanigaki is about to capture Usurpa, Ratar suddenly appears and immediately attacks Tanigaki to save Usurpa. On the other hand, Sugimoto, who is surrounded by the soldiers of the 7th Division, desperately enters the bear's den and manages to make the bear attack the soldiers. After the bear returns to the den, Sugimoto then kills the bear and go out from the den with the bear cub, hoping to make the bear cub as dinner. Not long after, Sugimoto finally reunites with Usurpa, who had been saved by Ratar. Sugimoto then tells Usurpa that he intends to make the bear cub as a meal. But Usurpa refuses to kill the bear cub, because if the Ainu people found the bear cub, then they would take care of it until it grew up. Therefore, Usurpa takes Sugimoto to her village, to hand over the baby bear to the villagers so they could take care of it. Upon arriving at the Ainu village, Usurpa introduced Sugimoto to her grandmother, Husai, who welcomes Sugimoto kindly. Sugimoto then hands over the bear cub to Husei, who would take care of the cub until it grew up. Usurpa tells Sugimoto that the Ainu people will take care of the baby bear until it grows up, and then they will release it. Sugimoto assumes that they will release the bear into the forest, but Usurpa says that they will release the bear into the divine realm through a ritual, which indicates that the bear will eventually be killed. On a snowy night, Tsurumi orders his soldiers to find the whereabouts of Tanigaki and his team, who disappears while trying to capture Sugimoto. Not long after, Tsurumi's superior, Captain Wada, arrives at the place and immediately reprimands Tsurumi because he gave orders to the soldiers of the 7th Division without asking for his approval first. Instead of apologizing for being presumptuous, Tsurumi attacks his superior and orders one of his men to kill Captain Wada. Meanwhile, Hijikata is seen in a brothel to meet a tattooed prisoner named Ushiyama, who thinks that Hijikata wants to kill him. Surprisingly, Hijikata has no intention of killing Ushiyama, and instead tells Ushiyama that they can copy the tattoo patterns on their bodies using oil paper, so they don't have to kill each other. Hijikata then tells Ushiyama about his plan to get rid of the 7th Division and offers Ushiyama to work with him to get the gold. The next day, Sugimoto meets Usurpa's uncle, Makanakiru, who tells him about the gold found and collected by the Ainu ancestors. However, Makanakaru considers the gold a curse because many people were killed fighting over it. Later that night, after Asurpa fell asleep, Makanakaru tells Sujimoto about Ritar's past. At that time, Asurpa and her father, who were hunting in the forest, saw a wolf cub that was about to be pounced on by a bear. They rushed to save the cub, and Asurpa decided to take care of it and named the wolf cub as Ritar. Asurpa was always cheerful and happy when spending time with Ritar. But then, everything changed when Asurpa lost her father. Asurpa changed after her father died. After being left alone, Asurpa relied on Ritar and spent times with him in the mountains. But one night, Ritar left Asurpa while she begged the wolf to stay. Asurpa broke down in tears, being abandoned once again. Since that day, she rarely smiled until she befriended Sujimoto. Makanakaru notes that spending time with Sujimoto has given Asurpa back her smile. However, she still struggles with the fear of being abandoned, uncertain whether Sujimoto still stays by her side if they find the gold. At midnight, when everyone was asleep, Sujimoto quietly left the Ainu village. Sujimoto thought that the gold search mission was too dangerous, so he decided to let Asurpa stay in the village because he didn't want to endanger Asurpa's life. The next day, Sujimoto returned to Otaru City to look for information about the tattooed prisoners. After getting information about a tattooed prisoner named Ushiyama from the man who owns a brothel, Sujimoto rushes to find Ushiyama's whereabouts in the city. But in the middle of the search, Sujimoto was caught by the soldiers of the 7th Division, who immediately beat him up. Not long after, Tsurumi appeared and immediately stopped his soldiers while ordering them to bring Sujimoto to the headquarters for interrogation. Sujimoto was then interrogated by Tsurumi, who asked for information about the gold. But Sujimoto pretended not to know about the gold. Tsurumi then explains that he is also looking for the gold because he intends to use the gold to control Hokkaido and form a new government. Elsewhere, Asurpa, who is very upset that Sujimoto left her in the village, then decides to find Sujimoto's whereabouts with the help of Ritar. Asurpa asks Ritar to sniff Sujimoto's socks and searches Otaru City. Later that night, Asurpa arrives at an inn after following Ritar, who sniffed Sujimoto's odor to the place. But unexpectedly, Asurpa meets Shiraishi, who is surprised to see Asurpa coming with a big wolf. Shiraishi then said that his socks might have been confused with Sujimoto's when they were warming themselves after falling into the frozen river. After listening to Asurpa's explanation, Shiraishi told the girl that this afternoon the soldiers of the 7th Division captured a man and brought him to the headquarters. Shiraishi also assumed that the man might be Sujimoto. Upon telling her, Shiraishi hurried to escape, but Ritar easily caught up with Shiraishi and captured him. Asurpa then asked Shiraishi to help her save Sujimoto. Knowing that Asurpa and Sujimoto intended to find the gold stolen from the Ainu people, Shiraishi was willing to help Asurpa, as long as they were willing to give half of the gold to him if they managed to find it. As Asurpa had little interest in gold, she readily accepted Shiraishi's terms. After reaching an agreement, Asurpa and Shiraishi rushed to the 7th Division headquarters and were informed that Sujimoto was being held in a room on the 2nd floor. Shiraishi then used his skills to sneak into the room and managed to untie Sujimoto. However, they were soon spotted by the soldiers on guard, so Shiraishi escaped without helping Sujimoto, who had to fight the soldiers alone. Knowing that the other soldiers started to arrive to check the situation, Sujimoto immediately thought of another plan to get out of that place. Not long after, Tsurumi arrived at the place and was surprised to see Sujimoto, who was badly injured. Tsurumi, who assumed that Sujimoto had information about the gold, then ordered his soldiers to take Sujimoto to the nearest doctor so that Sujimoto could be treated immediately, because Tsurumi would not let Sujimoto die before he gave information about the gold. After Sujimoto was taken away for medical treatment, Tsurumi then examined the bodies of his soldiers in the room, and soon found out that Sujimoto had tricked him. Tsurumi immediately rushed after Sujimoto, who managed to escape from the soldiers who intended to take him to the doctor. At the same time, Asurpa, who knew that Tsurumi was about to chase Sujimoto, then shot an arrow at the horse ridden by Tsurumi and caused the horse to fall, so Tsurumi could not catch up with Sugimoto. After that, Shiraishi, who was conducting an investigation, disguised himself as a soldier from the 7th Division and found that Tsurumi had captured several tattooed prisoners and skinned their bodies to get a tattoo pattern of the location of the gold. In the meantime, Sugimoto, who finally managed to avoid Tsurumi's pursuit, finally reunited with a Serpa who immediately beat him up because Sugimoto left her in the village. The Serpa then emphasized to Sugimoto that she could protect herself, so Sugimoto didn't need to worry about threats that could endanger her life. Upon hearing that, Sugimoto apologized to a Serpa for underestimating a Serpa's abilities by leaving the girl behind. Elsewhere, Hijikata was seen visiting his old friend, Shinpachi Nagakura, who used to join Hijikata in the Shinsengumi. Hijikata asked Nagakura for help in supplying some equipment and weapons to carry out his plan. Nagakura, who was very loyal to Hijikata, immediately fulfilled Hijikata's request. Although he confirmed that he could not help Hijikata on the battlefield like in Shinsengumi, and Hijikata understood it. After getting some information from the 7th Division, Shiraishi rushed to a Serpa and Sugimoto, and told them about Tsurumi, who had gotten some tattoo patterns from the prisoners he had skinned. Upon learning that, they intended to devise a plan to steal the tattoo patterns from Tsurumi. But before that, Sugimoto and his comrades decided to have dinner and rest. After visiting Nagakura and receiving weapons and equipment support, Hijikata intends to seek alliances to find the gold. Hijikata wants to recruit Zenjiro Shibukawa, a leader of a band of thieves that was recently released from Kabato prison. Oshiyama is skeptical of Shibukawa's cooperation, and Hijikata reveals that earlier he sent some messengers to the men, but they never returned. Still, Hijikata claims that they need Shibukawa's talents and his men and empathizes that they must not kill Shibukawa under any circumstances. Oshiyama mentions that there's only 10 of them versus a dozen of Shibukawa's men, which puts them at disadvantage. Hijikata disagrees and says that one cannot count on raw numbers winning battles. What matters is how many men on your side are prepared to die upon arriving to Shibukawa's residence. Hijikata and his men get inside the building. One of Shibukawa's men confronts them, but Oshiyama quickly grabs him and throws him in the air, breaking the ceiling. Shibukawa says that he hasn't seen Hijikata since he was transferred to a Bashiri prison, but back in Kabato prison he helped him a lot. Hijikata asks if his men have arrived, and Shibukawa replies that they did and were tortured until they gave up the information about Ainu gold. Hijikata announces to Shibukawa that he will either join him or fight to the death. Shibukawa asks Hijikata to show him his Ebashiri tattoo, but instead Hijikata throws him the severed heads of the men that were supposed to attack Hijikata and his group. Hijikata demands Shibukawa order his men that are hiding behind the walls to lower their weapons. Shibukawa seemingly surrenders, saying Hijikata may have fooled everyone in Kabato by acting like a quiet old man. But he always knew that Hijikata was a dangerous man. Suddenly, Shibukawa shouts, telling his men to kill the group, but he is immediately shot by Hijikata. The fighting ensues, and Hijikata, carrying both his katana and Winchester rifle, kills several of Shibukawa's thieves and orders his own men to let none escape. Oshiyama watches him, remarking to himself that this must be the true face of the Shinsengumi's merciless vice commander. After the fight, Oshiyama wonders if Hijikata really intends on making a new Shinsengumi and doubts that others would be interested in the coup. Hijikata replies that there are people who have lived for many years in the lands of Hokkaido who would want it to be liberated. The next day, Shiraishi goes into town to gather information, while Sugimoto and a Serpa notice some deer tracks and decide to follow them. A Serpa tells Sugimoto an Ainu story of how there were more deer in the past, as the gods gave it as food to humans. But due to heavy snow, the deer couldn't dig and find food and many died. As the two are looking for the buck's traces, a Serpa sees footprints that must belong to two humans and a dog. She realizes that Tanigaki, the 7th Division soldier who confronted her earlier, is alive. Meanwhile, Tanigaki is with a man named Tetsuzu Nihei, a hunter and one of tattooed prisoners, his dog Ryu. They hunt a bear and Nihei successfully shoots the bear. Upon seeing that, Tanigaki reveals that in his hometown he once heard stories about legendary bear killer from Hokkaido. Tanigaki realizes that the man in front of him is in fact the legendary hunter Tetsuzu Nihei. Nihei asks Tanigaki how long he is going to tag along with him. Tanigaki replies that he knows that Nihei is after the same thing as he is, the white wolf. After defeating the bear, Nihei explains to Tanigaki that the bear would have definitely become a man-eater, while jokes that female bears are more emotional and scarier, just like female humans. As he continues to skin the bear, Nihei talks about bear character traits. He reveals that he has killed over 200 bears on his own, and each time was different. Nihei guesses that Tanigaki has never hunted a wolf, prompting Tanigaki to ask if Nihei has fought a wolf before. Nihei replies that he's never hunted one and doesn't know a thing about wolves. That's why he wants to hunt it down. Hunting that wolf down excites Nihei, as he wants to find out who is more cunning out of them two. Meanwhile, Asurpa and Sugimoto continue to chase the deer. Sugimoto says they must hurry, and Asurpa worries that if the deer keeps running, the stress will make its meat taste worse. Asurpa and Sugimoto plan to ambush the animal, which is hiding in bushes down the slope. Asurpa promptly slides down by using a hiking stick, which alarms the deer. Sugimoto runs after the buck, but falls down and loses the prey. Afterward, Asurpa suggests they make a quick temporary shelter. In another part of the forest, Tanigaki and Nihei are dining on the bear meat. Nihei wonders why Tanigaki is here with him, and why he is still wearing the army cap. He also asks why Tanigaki doesn't go back to his hometown to become a hunter again. Tanigaki reveals that he has his own reasons for remaining in the army, and he was fully prepared to abandon his hometown in Akita. But when he came to the mountains, Tanigaki felt like a toxin deep inside of him was slowly seeping away. Having heard his tale, Nihei says that hunting the wolf is just an excuse for Tanigaki, as he is unable to return back to the army or go back home. Instead, his hunter's spirit is wandering aimlessly through the forests of Hokkaido. Nihei tells Tanigaki that after they've killed the wolf, Tanigaki should take its pelt and return to his hometown. In the morning, Asurpa and Sugimoto continue their search for the deer. Asurpa finds traces of the deer's presence. When Asurpa lures the deer out of its hiding, Sugimoto draws his gun at it. But as he sees the deer running at him, Sugimoto hesitates, seeing his own frenzied self in the face of the deer. The deer hits Sugimoto's rifle with its horns, causing it to go off, and escapes. However, it gets caught by Ritar, who pins it down to the ground. Asurpa and Sugimoto walk up to the struggling deer. Asurpa asks Sugimoto why didn't he shoot even though he said he would finish it off. Anxious, Sugimoto attempts to explain why he hesitated. Seeing the deer fight for its life despite the blood that was pouring from its wound getting frozen, Sugimoto couldn't move a muscle as he realizes that the deer is him. Asurpa stabs the deer in the neck, killing it swiftly. She calls Sugimoto out, saying that if he isn't ready to see it through to the end, he shouldn't fire his gun in the first place. She then cuts the deer's stomach open and asks Sugimoto to put his hands inside of its body. Sugimoto does, as Asurpa said in comments that his numb hands are getting warmer from the heat of the body. Asurpa tells Sugimoto that the deer warmed him in its death, the warmth reaching him and giving him life. Hearing her words, Sugimoto is reassured. At the same time, in the distance, Nihei and Tanigaki realize they just heard a gunshot from a rifle, the same one Tanigaki carries, and decided to head to the location where the gunshots came from. Asurpa and Sugimoto then continue to cut the deer up, while Ritar sniffs something in the air and starts acting strange. He pushes Asurpa to go faster, clearly agitated by someone's presence. In fact, Ritar detected the powerful scent of death that was coming from Tanigaki and Nihei and realized something unpleasant was approaching. Asurpa explains that wolves are very cautious animals and normally Ritar would have been gone by now, but he is staying to tell them to hurry up. Asurpa thinks to herself that it must be the soldier from the other day, and that he must be still following them. She suggests Sugimoto they take as much as they can carry and head back. Not long after, Tanigaki and Nihei find the deer's carcass. Nihei notices wolf tracks and says that, judging by the state of the carcass, some hunters must have stolen the wolf's kill. However, Tanigaki observes the human tracks and recognizes they belong to the man and the Ainu girl he encountered the other day. He tells Nihei that the meat was probably left for the wolf to eat, but the animal sensed them coming and ran away. Tanigaki thinks that the wolf doesn't seem to be afraid of the Ainu girl, and that he might come back to eat the rest of the deer. All this time, Asurpa and Sugimoto have been watching the hunters from afar. Sugimoto wonders if the two might be hunters. Later, they return to one of their hunting huts, but find it occupied. Sugimoto draws his gun, but turns out it was just Shiraishi who came back from town. Shiraishi tells them that he's managed to get some info about a tattooed prisoner. Shiraishi says that a fur trader told him that a man who was sentenced to prison years ago for killing 3 men showed up out of the blue. Shiraishi claims that he knows the man, as he happens to be another Abashiri convict. He says that the prisoner is a ridiculously skilled hunter named Nihei Tetsuzu. Asurpa realizes that she has heard Nihei's name before. She recalls how there used to be horrible men who would go around murdering hunters and stealing their prey. Once, when Asurpa and her father were hunting, they became the target of those men. Asurpa's father marked the bear's fur with a symbol and later recognized it when a man brought the same pelt to the fur trader. The man was arrested, but there still were 3 of his accomplices who were looking for hunters to rob in the forest. However, they picked the wrong man to target, without knowing that what they were dealing with was Nihei Tetsuzu. Nihei was butchering a bear in the woods when a bullet ricocheted off the ground at his feet, followed by a gunshot in the distance. Nihei realized he was being targeted and shouted at the bandits, threatening the men. The bandits didn't take Nihei's warning seriously and shot at him, the bullet passing through Nihei's hair. Nihei considered that shot as the opening of hunting season, and over the next 3 days hunted the bandits one by one, clubbing each to death. However, the last bandit got caught by the police. While the policeman tried to stop him, Nihei proceeded to snapping the bandit's neck. The murder of the bandit resulted in Nihei being sent to the Abashiri prison. In the present, Sugimoto asks Shiraishi about Nihei, and Shiraishi describes him as an older man with graying hair, carrying a single-shot rifle, and accompanied by a brown Ainu hunting dog. Sugimoto realizes that this matches the appearance of the man he and Asurpa saw earlier. Shiraishi then reveals that the fur trader in town told him that Nihei asked about the money he'd get for the pelt of a white wolf. Asurpa is shocked to hear it because Tanigaki was hunting for Ritar and not her. Nihei, Tanigaki, and Ryu prepare to ambush the wolf and set a trap for him by leaving a mess kit to grab the wolf's attention. Nihei takes a position up on the hill, waiting for Ritar to appear. The hunter tries to quell his urge to kill and become one with the trees in order to stay hidden. Meanwhile, Sugimoto and Shiraishi spot Nihei, but Shiraishi can't confirm his identity unless he sees his face. Sugimoto tells Asurpa to stay put and use her bow as a backup, while he and Shiraishi get closer to Nihei. Suddenly, Asurpa notices the wolf hiding behind a tree and internally begs Ritar to stay away, while Nihei, who has also noticed Ritar, grows more excited and impatient. Ritar emerges from his hiding spot, but before Nihei manages to pull the trigger, Asurpa shoots an arrow in the mess kit. Alerting the wolf, Nihei takes a shot and the bullet grazes Ritar's fur, scaring him away. At the same time, Sugimoto aims his gun at Nihei, telling the hunter to toss his gun to him. Sugimoto asks Shiraishi to confirm Nihei's identity, which makes Nihei realize that the 2 men came after his tattoo. Sugimoto once again asks Nihei to drop his weapon, but Nihei is ready to fight. Before Sugimoto can fire his gun, he is attacked by Ryu. As Sugimoto fends off Ryu's attack with the barrel of the gun, Nihei swings a cleaver at him. Sugimoto takes out his bayonet and slices over Nihei's left hand, cutting off 4 of his fingers. Sugimoto stabs Nihei in the arm, but Nihei hits his head with the rifle. Nihei and Sugimoto continue their fight. Sugimoto shouts at Shiraishi to get his gun, but Shiraishi is stopped by Nihei's dog Ryu. While Nihei and Sugimoto face off each other in a deadly match, Shiraishi attempts to wrestle Ryu to retrieve the gun. Once armed, Shiraishi draws the gun at Nihei and warns the hunter. At the same time, Tanigaki takes a Serpa hostage and orders Shiraishi and Sugimoto to drop their weapons. Furious with Tanigaki using a Serpa as a human shield, Sugimoto loses control and charges at Tanigaki with his bayonet and throws the blade at the man, stabbing him through the palm of his hand and his cheek. Nihei tackles Sugimoto and holds him in a chokehold on the ground. Shiraishi calls out to Tanigaki, saying he should be ashamed of using an innocent child as a hostage. Tanigaki doesn't budge and claims that the last time he saw a Serpa, she was carrying a tattooed skin, so they shouldn't pretend she has nothing to do with the situation. A Serpa tries to reason with Tanigaki, telling him that her life isn't worth much to Shiraishi and he will start shooting. She says there's no need for them to shed blood and it's better to calm down and stop fighting. Nihei warns Tanigaki not to trust a Serpa, reminding him that women are frightening creatures. Tanigaki shouts that he doesn't care whether a Serpa gets hurt in the process, and Sugimoto gives in, telling Shiraishi to drop the gun. Sugimoto then asks Nihei to take a Serpa away so she wouldn't see them being killed. Nihei agrees and asks Tanigaki to get him some ropes to tie Sugimoto and Shiraishi up. Sugimoto and Shiraishi exchange looks, silently coming up with an escape plan. Nihei proceeds to bandage his injured hand, while Tanigaki takes a Serpa away, much to her protest. Distracted by a sudden memory of his daughter, Nihei doesn't notice that Shiraishi and Sugimoto manage to flee. Nihei alerts Tanigaki of the two men escaping. Tanigaki pulls a Serpa's bandana over her mouth to silence her and takes her to the river. Exhausted and not thinking straight, Tanigaki walks into an Ainu deer trap. Before a Serpa manages to warn him, Tanigaki is struck with a poisoned arrow in his leg. A Serpa commands him to untie her and tells him that since Ainu poisons have no antidote, the only way to save Tanigaki is to carve away the flesh around the wound. Tanigaki agrees to it, and a Serpa dives the blade into Tanigaki's thigh. Nihei finds a Serpa tending to Tanigaki and realizes that he walked into the deer trap. A Serpa explains that she cut away all the flesh around the wound, but since the poison was mixed by someone else, she doesn't know if Tanigaki will survive. At any rate, he won't be able to move anytime soon. A Serpa suggests they stop their fight as they didn't come to kill Nihei in the first place. But Nihei disregards a Serpa's words and promises Tanigaki to kill the white wolf and bring it back to him. Nihei then grabs a Serpa and runs away with her, hoping to get the wolf to come out of the hiding. A Serpa tells Nihei to put her down. She pleads with Nihei, saying that Ritar is the last of his kind. Nihei claims the wolves are already wiped out, and he doesn't care about the money, because he just wants to be the last hunter to see a Hokkaido wolf. Afterward, Nihei brings a Serpa to an open spot. A Serpa tries to put up a fight, but Nihei ties her to a tree branch. He tells a Serpa that his fight with Ritar is a fight to the death between two beasts, and Nihei plans to survive. He promises to end it in one shot, so Ritar won't suffer. Not long after, Ritar appears and charges towards Nihei. Nihei aims his gun and fires a few shots, but Ritar manages to dodge every one of them. Upon seeing that, Nihei is amazed and thinks that Ritar might understand how a gun works. Ritar jumps at Nihei and bites into his left arm, but Nihei puts the barrel of his gun to Ritar's head and announces his victory. Suddenly, another wolf jumps at Nihei from the back and bites into his neck. Ryu rushes to Nihei's defense, barking loudly at the wolves and shielding Nihei from them. The wolf joins Ritar, and Nihei realizes that they're a heat pack. Even while gravely injured, Nihei remarks how Ritar's mate didn't respect the rules of a battle between men, attesting how terrifying women are. Still, Nihei is satisfied in his dying moments. Shortly afterward, Sugimoto and Shiraishi arrive at the scene and free a Serpa. Asurpa hears howling and sees 4 wolf cubs. Asurpa is deeply touched by seeing Ritar's family. She is reminded of the night when Ritar left and realizes that this is the reason of his departure. Lastly, Tanigaki decides to join the others, while Asurpa insists they take Tanigaki and Ryu with them to the Ainu village. Shiraishi, who's been carrying Tanigaki on the stretcher, takes a break and says he is going to rest until Sujimoto catches up. Nearby, Sujimoto is seen retrieving Nihei's tattooed skin and marching on. Upon arriving at the Ainu village, the group enjoys a meal together. As they eat the fish Husai brought, she recounts an Ainu story of how the fish stopped appearing as men started searching for gold. Eventually, the Ainu decided to stop gathering gold and hid it. Shiraishi guesses it's the same gold they're after, and that there must be more gold hidden than they have known of. Tanigaki then joins the conversation, saying Tsurumi is an intelligence officer, so he has gathered intel on the gold. Tsurumi believes there is 1,000 times more gold than what Naparabo told the prisoners. Shiraishi wonders why Tsurumi would want to start a coup, and Sujimoto guesses that it must have been the siege of Port Arthur. Tanigaki explains they were sent in the battle despite the chances of success being little. At that time, Tsurumi led his soldiers into battle, and they won, but lost half of the men. Lieutenant General Hanazawa, chief of staff who gave orders during the siege, took his life after he returned to Japan. However, the government blamed the division for it. The 7th Division soldiers were denied their money and rewards and were treated like outcasts by the rest of the army. Tsurumi then decided to create a military dictatorship under his lead with the Ainu gold. In the present, Shiraishi asks if Sujimoto changed his mind about the gold after what he heard. Sujimoto replies that he won't let Tsurumi have the gold and will keep the promise to his partner. Elsewhere, Hijikata decides they go in town, so Ushiyama can visit a prostitute. Hijikata explains to Nagakira that if Ushiyama hasn't slept with a woman for some time, he becomes unstable and can go even after men. At the same time, Shiraishi is also in town and decides to go to a more expensive brothel to gather information. As Shiraishi is about to enter the building, he runs into Ushiyama at the door. Upon seeing him, Shiraishi immediately runs away, terrified for his life. Ushiyama then chases him, telling him he just wants to talk. As he can't shake him off, Shiraishi sees some soldiers from the 7th Division. He tells them that a man with strange tattoos is chasing him for allegedly stealing money at the baths. The soldiers realize Ushiyama is a tattooed prisoner and aim their guns at him. In the flashback, Hijikata was seen talking to Nagakira on a cliff. He said that Naparabo and him shared a goal, and so he was the only Abashiri convict to know the true amount of the gold hidden. Hijikata said that with that money, he will be able to create a new nation. Back to the present, Ushiyama is fighting the 7th Division soldiers in Otaru. One of the soldiers, a man named Nikadu, manages to shoot him in the shoulder, but then Hijikata's reinforcements arrive. At the same time, nearby explosions are heard as Hijikata walks by hostages in the bank. Tsurumi arrives at the scene and inspects a corpse of a man who was reported to be a tattooed prisoner, but the man has no tattoos. Tsurumi deduces that the shootout is a mere diversion from the real goal. In the bank, Hijikata's men take money and jewelry, while Nagakira finds Hijikata's legendary katana. Tsurumi follows Hijikata to the bank, but he is too late. As he tries to shoot Hijikata, the man escapes on a horse Tsurumi rode. Meanwhile, Shiraishi goes back to the brothel where he asked one of the ladies to take a piece of clothing from the tattooed man. Shiraishi obtains Ushiyama's sock and asks Asurpa to lend him Ritar. Asurpa refuses, explaining Ritar isn't hers to lend and she doesn't plan on getting close to Ritar ever again, after seeing he had a family. Shiraishi then decides to use Ryu to locate Ushiyama. After searching streets of Otaru, Ryu manages to find Ushiyama's whereabouts. Upon arrival at the place, Shiraishi is peeping into a window, overhearing Nagakira and Ushiyama talk about recent murders at Shakotan Coast and an Abashiri convict, Kazuo Henmi, a serial killer who has killed more than 100 men. However, Ryu makes a noise, alerting Ushiyama, who then jumps out of the window and seizes Shiraishi. The two then get into a fight, but their fight is interrupted by Hijikata, who prevents Ushiyama from murdering Shiraishi. Later, Ushiyama proposes they leave Shiraishi alive if he lets them copy his tattoo. Hijikata guesses that Shiraishi isn't working alone. Shiraishi explains that he is working with Sugimoto, but states they don't have any tattoos. Hijikata then tells Shiraishi to get the skin of Kazuo Henmi. Shiraishi returns to Sugimoto and Asurpa and tells them about recent fisherman killings, and that the killer is Kazuo Henmi. Shiraishi says it must be Henmi because all of the bodies had the eye character carved on them, the same character Henmi has on his tattoo. Shiraishi then recalls his meeting with Henmi. The man told him how he saw a wild boar eat his little brother alive. The traumatic event led to Henmi developing an obsession with killing. Worried about her uncle, Makanakaru, who is currently hunting a whale at the coast, Asurpa decides they catch the criminal. The three go to the coast, where they are greeted by Makanakaru, who asks them for help. One of the boats caught a whale, but it's been dragging them since yesterday. The group takes a boat and reach the fishermen. Makanakaru then asks Sugimoto to hit the whale with a harpoon. The whale drags them between other boats, making a fisherman fall into the sea. Afraid the fisherman may die from hypothermia, Sugimoto suggests they go and help him. They cut their rope, leaving Shiraishi and the other boat to continue hunting the whale, while they go back and help the fisherman. However, the fisherman turns out to be Henmi Kazuo, who has seen Shiraishi and guesses he and Sugimoto came to kill him. Warming himself by the fire, Henmi doesn't want to remove his clothes to not reveal his tattoos. He says he is too embarrassed to undress in front of others, so Sugimoto gives him a blanket. Henmi is amazed at how nice Sugimoto is, so he wonders if he really came to kill him. He notes that Sugimoto has a scent of a murderer, just like him, so he hopes that Sugimoto will brutally kill him just like the beast that killed his brother. Henmi goes back to the fishermen dorms and changes his clothes. He is excited about meeting Sugimoto and wants to learn more about him. Henmi realizes that he is not alone, as a sick fisherman who saw him change clothes asks about his strange tattoos. Henmi strangles the fisherman with a string, but is interrupted by Sugimoto knocking on the window, asking if they could stay in the dorms and if there's work they could do. Henmi shows Sugimoto and Asurpa around and explains the process of preserving herring. He then asks Sugimoto to cut a fish block with a big knife. As Sugimoto dives the knife in the block, Henmi gets aroused, imagining himself in the place of the block. Asurpa says they should leave and go find Shiraishi, and Sugimoto agrees. Not wanting them to leave, Henmi invites the two for a meal of white rice, to which they happily agree. After they eat, Asurpa goes to find a bathroom, leaving Henmi and Sugimoto alone. Henmi asks if Sugimoto was at Port Arthur and whether he killed people. Sugimoto confirms it, stating that he will never forget the faces of the men he killed and that his own death will not be peaceful. Hearing this arouses Henmi even more, convincing him he has to try and kill Sugimoto to finally meet the gruesome death he seeks. Concurrently, Asurpa sees a severed head in the bathroom, realizing that Henmi should be nearby. She rushes to warn Sugimoto, but he has already left with Henmi. Sugimoto then notices 7th Division soldiers and quickly covers his face, afraid of the soldiers seeing him. Henmi realizes the 7th Division also took his bait and are here for the tattooed prisoners. Henmi takes Sugimoto's hand and leads him to the mansion of the herring magnate, as there are plenty of places to hide. At the mansion, Tsurumi is playing the piano and is discussing future investments with the magnate. Tsurumi asks the magnate to donate to the construction of a weapon factory. Meanwhile, Henmi and Sugimoto enter the mansion, but 2 soldiers are already upstairs and recognize Sugimoto. Henmi tries to distract the men, but when it fails, he slashes the throat of one soldier with his fisherman knife and stabs the other in the eye. The soldier shoots Henmi, and the gunshot alerts Tsurumi. As Sugimoto tries to leave with Henmi, he is stopped by Tsurumi. They're interrupted by the herring boss, who starts firing the Maxim gun, and Sugimoto manages to escape while carrying Henmi on his back. The two head to the coast where they see Shiraishi and the others who have managed to kill the whale and drag it to the beach. Sugimoto tells Shiraishi that the 7th Division is here, but Shiraishi sees Henmi behind Sugimoto and warns him about the killer. Henmi is stopped by Usurpa's arrow, but still attempts to fight Sugimoto, who easily blocks his attack and stabs Henmi multiple times. Sugimoto quickly takes Henmi down and stabs him with a bayonet. Suddenly, an orca comes out from the sea and drags Henmi away. Sugimoto, Usurpa, and Shiraishi get on a boat and chase the animal. The orca starts throwing Henmi, trying to kill him. At the same time, Henmi realizes he is going to die a violent death just like his brother and is super overjoyed to die like this. But unexpectedly, Sugimoto jumps in the water to get him. The orca then charges at the boat to get its prey, but Usurpa pierces it with a harpoon. The orca then pulls the boat away, helping the group escape from Tsurumi. Meanwhile, Hijikata observes the events from the distance, commenting that Shiraishi has fascinating friends. Afterward, Tsurumi gets informed that Ogata has disappeared from the hospital and Nikidu has been missing for days. Back at the Ainu's village, Tanigaki returns to Husai's house, and to his surprise, he finds Ogata and Nikidu inside waiting for him. Tanigaki explains that he got hit by a poison arrow and spent all this time recovering from the injury. Ogata questions why Tanigaki didn't go back to Tsurumi now when he can walk, to which Tanigaki replies that today is the first day he is able to walk with a staff. Ogata mentions that Tamai, Noma, and Okada didn't return either, and suggests that Tanigaki killed them. Tanigaki denies it and asks Ogata and Nakadu to not hurt the Ainu people. Ogata then says he was joking and will pretend he didn't see Tanigaki, so he is allowed to stay as much as he wants to repay the Ainu. Before leaving, Ogata asks Tanigaki if he has seen Sugimoto the Immortal and an Ainu child, but Tanigaki says no. Tanigaki explains to Husai that he will be leaving, but Usurpa's cousin, Asoma, gets upset and starts pulling Tanigaki on his ears, not wanting to let him go. As he is pulled by Asoma, Tanigaki gets grazed by a shot in the forehead. Nikidu tells Ogata that he missed and that they should have killed Tanigaki down there. Ogata states that would mean killing the witnesses too, and he doesn't want to kill the grandma as he is fond of his own grandmother. Ogata believes that Tanigaki is an honest man and wouldn't betray Tsurumi. He guesses Tamai and others may have failed to persuade Tanigaki and tried to shut him up, but were killed in return. Meanwhile, Tanigaki recalls a talk with Tamai, who implied there are people who plan on betraying Tsurumi, and Tanigaki now believes Ogata is one of them. At the coast, Sugimoto and Shiraishi are drinking and enjoying a meal, while Usurpa is falling asleep after a tiring day. The three are approached by Hijikata, who says that Usurpa has pretty colored eyes, commenting she might have some Russian blood in her. Hijikata then asks Sugimoto about the girl's name, specifying that it's the Japanese name he is curious about. Sugimoto replies that he never asked and he doesn't know. Before leaving, Hijikata secretly tells Shiraishi to make copies of the tattooed skins. Tanigaki uses a smokescreen to escape the Ainu village and Husai asks the gods to protect Tanigaki, and Asoma brings Nihei's rifle that was hidden by Usurpa. Ogata observes the village from the distance and gleefully comments that it's time to go Tanigaki hunting. Tanigaki has run off to the forest and is armed with Nihei's rifle. Tanigaki runs into the forest, trying to get away from his pursuers, and notices bear tracks with bear cub stepping in his mother's footprints. He decides to follow it the same way, and Ogata and Nikidu lose Tanigaki. Nikidu then comments he doesn't care if Tsurumi finds out about their betrayal, because he only cares about killing Sugimoto. Tanigaki sees a deer carcass and realizes the bear uses this path daily. At night, Nikidu wants to start a fire to warm himself, but Ogata dismisses the idea, saying the fire will alert Tanigaki of their location. In the morning, Ogata and Nikidu see smoke and decide to check it, where they find a campfire with a person's belongings. Ogata tells Nikidu to go check the campfire for Tanigaki's tracks and give him a signal if he finds anything. Nikedu confirms it's Tanigaki and then warms himself at the fire. However, Ogata is sure this is a trap, so he is waiting for Tanigaki's next move. Hungry and tired, Nikedu loses his focus and is violently attacked by a bear that appeared suddenly. The bear mauls Nikedu, ripping his ear off and injuring his face. Ogata realizes that Tanigaki planned this and is waiting for Ogata to shoot to reveal his location. Nikedu screams for help, and after some moments, Ogata finally shoots the bear, scaring it away. Ogata stands up, confident Tanigaki can't fight him without a gun. A shot is fired, knocking Ogata away as Tanigaki shoots him with Nihei's rifle. Tanigaki is then alerted by Mishima, a soldier from the 7th Division. Mishima approaches Tanigaki and explains that the 7th Division has been tracking Ogata and Nikedu all this time, and that Tsurumi will arrive shortly. Mishima says that all of this was an elaborate plan to smoke out other rebels, and that he was waiting for Ogata to make contact with Tamai's group. But Tanigaki has killed them. Tanigaki tried to protest, but Mishima interrupts him, saying he knows Tanigaki didn't betray Tsurumi. Tanigaki wants to explain himself, but he sees Mishima get shot in the head by Ogata, who has come to his senses. Ogata realizes he needs to shoot Tanigaki before Tsurumi gets there, but it's too late because Tsurumi and his men have already arrived. Tsurumi orders the soldiers to kill Ogata, but the sniper manages to escape. Tanigaki takes the chaos as an opportunity to leave unnoticed. Tsurumi captures Nikedu and cuts his other ear off. He then puts the blade to Nikedu's nose, demanding Nikedu tell him the names of the other traitors. Nikedu is indifferent, but when offered an opportunity to kill Sujimoto, he cooperates and gives Kamiya in to Tsurumi. Meanwhile, Ogata manages to escape. Elsewhere, Asurpa, Sujimoto, and Shiraishi are walking in the forest. The group has now obtained 5 tattoos, and Sujimoto wonders about other people in possessions of tattoos. He asks what kind of man is Hijikata, and Shiraishi recalls his experiences with the Shinsengumi vice commander and how youthful he seemed in the prison. The three walk further and see a river dam, and Asurpa warns about a legendary dangerous fish, the greatest of all Hachin, said to eat even bears. Shiraishi takes the warning lightly, but the bridge breaks and he falls in the water. Sujimoto and Asurpa attempt to save him, but Shiraishi is caught by a giant fish. A man jumps into the water and saves Shiraishi after defeating the fish. The man turns out to be an old friend of Asurpa's father, Kirarank. While Kirarank and Shiraishi warm themselves by the fire, Asurpa and Sujimoto scale the fish. Kirarank hears Sujimoto's name and realizes he is the immortal Sujimoto. When asked where he heard the name, Kirarank replies that he is with the 7th Division. Sujimoto asks him if he works for Tsurumi. However, Kirarank states his leading officer had different name. Moreover, he hasn't been in contact with anyone from the military ever since he left the army. Kirarank explains that he recognized Sujimoto from the name and the scar on his face. Yet, he is curious what's a war hero doing here with Asurpa. Asurpa replies that Sujimoto is her partner, and Kirarank concludes that if Asurpa thinks so, then they can be trusted. He then tells Asurpa that an old Japanese man came to his village and was looking for a girl named Asuko Kachaub. Asurpa is surprised as that's her Japanese name and only her mother and father knew it. Kirarank explains that Naparabo told the prisoners that one of his trusted people outside is Asuko Kachaub in Otaru. Kirarank reveals that Naparabo was trying to entrust the gold to Asurpa and that he is Asurpa's father. Asurpa can't believe it's her father that killed the Ainu and took the gold. Sujimoto wonders why Kirarank knows Asurpa's Japanese name, and Kirarank says that he and Asurpa's father, Wilk, came to Japan together. Asurpa wants to meet Naparabo to confirm he is actually her father. Shiraishi asserts that will be hard, but he is willing to help out. Kirarank explains he feels responsible for how the gold was stolen, and after Sujimoto and Shiraishi take fair amount, he wishes to return the rest to the Ainu. The group returns to Asurpa's village where they see Tanigaki, dressed in Ainu clothes playing music with Osoma. Kirarank seems to recognize Tanigaki, but then wrongly assumes he's Asurpa's uncle. Later, they all sit by the fire and discuss their future voyage to Abashiri prison. Tanigaki draws a map on the ground and points at Asahikawa, a city located halfway to Abashiri. He says this town is home to the 7th Division headquarters. Kirarank offers to go through Sapporo, as he has a friend there, and they can buy weapons and explosives for cheap. At night, Shiraishi speaks with Sugimoto in private and wonders if they should trust Kirarank. Sugimoto comments he doesn't even trust Shiraishi and believes that Kirarank hides something about Naparabo. However, he thinks that if Asurpa trusts Kirarank, he must not be a bad guy. In the morning, Kirarank, Asurpa, Sugimoto, and Shiraishi head out to Sapporo. In Sapporo, a married couple arrives to Sapporo World Hotel during a thunderstorm and are greeted by a mysterious proprietress. Afterward, a woman wakes up in Sapporo World Hotel's basement and screams in horror when she sees her husband's severed head. On the other hand, shadowed figure is smiling as she readies her bone saw to claim another victim. Upon arriving in Sapporo, Sugimoto's group visits a shop to buy explosives and weapons. Shiraishi wonders if there's a place nearby where they can sleep, and the shopkeeper tells them of an old hotel nearby, which was recently taken over by a new proprietress who is both young and beautiful. In the meantime, the proprietress, Kano Inaga, is greeting Ushiyama in Sapporo World Hotel. As she is walking him to his room, Ushiyama wonders about her past and compliments her body and voice. Unbeknown to him, Inaga is a former Abashiri convict who has since changed drastically. Inaga suggests Ushiyama go to a Chinese restaurant nearby and explains their unique outlook, where they believe that eating a part of an animal's body can heal the corresponding part in the human body. Ushiyama reminisces of an old man he knew in a Bashiri prison who said the same thing and asks Inaga if it truly works. She affirms it, and Ushiyama asks what part should he eat if he needs more stamina in bed, then slams his hand against the wall, cornering Inaga and saying he wants to sleep with her. Inaga compliments his strong arms, but the two are interrupted by the arrival of Sugimoto's group. Inaga greets her new guests and is surprised to find Shiraishi among them. Just like Ushiyama, Shiraishi, who has no idea of Inaga's past identity, is trying to woo the proprietress. After escorting everyone to their rooms, Inaga observes Shiraishi and Kirarank through one of the secret passages of the maze-like hotel. She desires to obtain Ushiyama's strong body to achieve the perfection she dreams of, so she plans on using gas to put him to sleep. However, she is followed by Shiraishi who wants to talk with her. When Shiraishi gets dangerously close to meeting Ushiyama, Inaga pulls the lever to open a vent under him. Shiraishi falls to the basement, where Inaga puts him to sleep with an injection and says that now she also wants to obtain the pretty blue eyes of her guest. Asurpa and Kirarank comment on Ushiyama's strange ears. Sugimoto explains the meaning and wonders if Ushiyama did a lot of judo before. They shake hands and immediately grab at each other's arms, assessing the strength of their opponent. Sugimoto is amazed by the man's power, and Ushiyama invites them out to drink. Back in the hotel, Ushiyama is looking for Inaga. He finds the secret passage with a lever and pulls it, opening the vent in the floor. Wondering if Inaga is there, he walks right into the vent, falling into the basement. Shiraishi, who's been trying to break free from the chains Inaga put him in, is startled by Ushiyama's sudden entrance, but still asks him for help, saying that the proprietress is one of the convicts. Hearing the word proprietress, Ushiyama mistakes Shiraishi for Inaga and starts kissing his chest, but then stops and vomits, briefly coming to his senses. Shiraishi explains that Inaga is in fact an Abashiri convict who used to be a doctor, with her lip mole being a dead giveaway. Ushiyama states that he doesn't care, and he won't leave until he sleeps with Inaga. He rams through the basement door while Shiraishi escapes up the vent. Inaga is looking at sleeping Asurpa. She comments on the girl's beauty and touches her skin and hair, then pulls her eyelid up, admiring Asurpa's eyes. As Inaga tries to get a taste of Asurpa's eye, Sugimoto kicks the proprietress in the face. Realizing that the gas was not enough to knock Sugimoto out, Inaga plays dumb and says she just was checking on Usurpa because she seemed ill. Sugimoto doesn't believe her and asks how she got in the room in the first place. Shiraishi knocks at the door, saying they need to get out of the hotel and that the proprietress is an Abashiri convict who used to eat the flesh of her patients. She then throws 2 syringes in Usurpa's direction and disappears in one of the secret passages. Sugimoto catches the syringes with his hand and tells Shiraishi that Inaga has escaped. As Inaga tries to run away, she is stopped by Ushiyama, who is frenzied with lust for her. Ushiyama is chasing Inaga while breaking everything on his way. Shiraishi grabs Kirarank's explosives to defend himself and throws one in front of Inaga, who then runs in Sugimoto's direction. She yells, revealing Ushiyama is a tattooed prisoner too. Ushiyama rams into Sugimoto and the two break the wall and fight. Accidentally, Ushiyama slams Sugimoto against a vent in the floor, sending him down the basement. Inaga deems her hotel useless now and pulls the lever that triggers the building's self-destruction. She prepares to leave the hotel, but Shiraishi throws another grenade at her, causing an explosion. Sugimoto finds himself in the basement where he smells alcohol. The flames from the explosion reach the basement, and Sugimoto runs for his life from the fiery wave behind. Shiraishi runs into Ushiyama and drops the explosives he carried. Ushiyama wonders what Shiraishi is doing here, then concludes that the man he fought earlier is Sugimoto the Immortal. Shiraishi notices the fire in the basement and urges Ushiyama to get out of the hotel. Ushiyama says he has a message from the old man for Shiraishi, always keep us informed of your whereabouts. Shiraishi realizes he dropped his bag with explosives and goes to pick it up. He trips and the explosives fall down the basement. Shiraishi runs for Sugimoto and Kirarank, who are carrying Usurpa, telling them there's a bomb. Ushiyama finds Inaga trapped in the debris and proceeds to rescue her. Inaga insists he must understand why she did all of that, as she wanted to stay the best person she ever was, even if it meant stealing from others. As she calls Ushiyama perfect, the explosion demolishes the building, but Sugimoto, Usurpa, Kirarank, and Shiraishi manage to escape. The group leaves what's left of the hotel and sets out for Abashiri. The next day, Shiraishi passes a copy of Kazuo Henmi's tattoo to Ushiyama. Ushiyama asks Shiraishi to come with him and leads him to a room he has rented, where Inaga is recovering after the explosion of her hotel. In the meantime, Usurpa, Seichai Sugimoto, and Kirarank are looking for survivors in the debris of the hotel ruins. Kirarank says that the fire department and the police didn't report any causalities, and the bodies of Inaga's previous victims were buried underneath the rubble. Kirarank laments that Shiraishi lost the explosives they bought, and now they need to find money to buy more. Usurpa suggests they visit a cotton in Naganuma where she has relatives. There, they can hunt and earn money that way. In Naganuma, Usurpa introduces others to Husai's younger brother, who lets them stay in his house for tonight. Husai's brother tells them about a strange woman who came to their cotton earlier and is staying there now. She is said to be a clairvoyant, being able to see a person's past and future. The woman then walks up to the group, and Husai's brother reveals that her name is Inkarmat. Shiraishi is swayed by Inkarmat's looks and attempts to flirt with her. The woman guesses the group came from Otaru and insists that she can see that they're searching for someone. Shiraishi is shocked by her clairvoyance powers, while Usurpa remains skeptical. Inkarmat explains that she is a fortune teller and that the Ainu people often come to her for help. Inkarmat offers to predict the group's fortune and says that it's a bad sign. Usurpa is not impressed by it, saying she is a new kind of Ainu woman and she doesn't believe in fortune telling. Inkarmat smiles and asks if it's Usurpa's father they're looking for. The next morning, Usurpa tells Sugimoto that Shiraishi is missing, but Kirarank says he knows where the man went. Shiraishi and Inkarmat are at Naganuma racetrack, making bets on the horses with the help of Inkarmat's fortune telling. The horse Shiraishi bet on wins, so the man continues gambling and buying all sorts of amulets from Inkarmat, hoping it will bring him luck. Usurpa, Kirorank, and Sugimoto find the two at the racetrack, and Usurpa realizes Shiraishi was using Inkarmat's fortune-telling for races and warns him not to trust her. While they argue, Kirorank observes the horses on the racetrack and comments that the winning horse must be either number 3 or 4. Shiraishi wonders if Kirorank can also predict the future, to which Kirorank replies that he grew up riding horses and knows a lot about them, so much that during the Russo-Japanese War he was allowed to take care of combat engineers' horses. Upon hearing that, Inkarmat agrees that number 3 must win, so Shiraishi bets his money on it. Kirorank picks up a jockey's cap off the ground and puts it on his head. He is then approached by 2 men who mistake him for a jockey named Takasaki. The men explain that the jockey they are looking for has run off, and now they need someone to replace him. One of the men asks if Kirorank can ride a horse, and the other tells him that the owner of the horse wanted the jockey to cheat, and that's why he ran away. The horse owner is a Yakuza boss who wants an unpopular horse to win the race, and the men say there will be dire consequences if they don't comply. Dressed in jockey's outfit and with his face clean-shaved, Kirorank walks up to Usurpa and others and asks them to bet on him, choosing number 3. However, when Inkarmat performs her fortune-telling and says that number 3 can't win, Usurpa tells Shiraishi to stop it, insisting that fortune-telling is for those who don't know what to do, and she is certain of her journey. Inkarmat announces that number 6 will win, and Shiraishi excitedly wants to bet everything on it. The race starts, and Kirorank is immediately hit with another jockey's whip. However, he quickly regains his senses and takes the lead. Shiraishi groans that he is going to lose while Sugimoto cheers on Kirorank, who then comes first. After his victory, Kirorank joins the others, saying they need to leave as the Yakuza boss must be looking for him. He wonders where Shiraishi is, and Sugimoto points at the man who is clearly having a mental breakdown. Sugimoto's group is back in Husai's brother's village, getting ready to continue their journey. Shiraishi says he has something interesting to share and retells what Inaga told him earlier. A month ago, a man came to Inaga's hotel. The man turned out to be a thief, and he told Inaga of a strange thing he saw in a house he snuck into in Yubari: taxidermized human mounts and a skin with tattoos that didn't look like Yakuza's. Shiraishi suggests they should follow this lead, and so the group heads out to Yubari. Late at night in Yubari, Tsurumi are setting an ambush at the cemetery, waiting for a grave robber. Tsurumi asks Tsukishima to keep an eye on the fresh grave that was dug yesterday. Tsurumi expects the grave robber to appear, taking their bait. Nikadu distracts Tsurumi, saying his ear looks just like Yaohei's, and asks Tsurumi to give him his left ear. As they talk, the grave robber appears and Tsukishima alerts Tsurumi. Nikadu steps on a branch, and the noise scares the grave robber away. Tsukishima and Nikadu follow the man, while Tsurumi picks up a glove the robber dropped. This anime series ends with Tsurumi, who puts on the glove that looks like it's made out of human skin and smiles excitedly, planning to visit the escapee soon. The moral lesson that can be learned from this anime is that greed can make anyone will do various ways to get their desires, including eliminating the lives of others and making others suffer. Therefore, don't be greedy and cruel. This is the end of Golden Kamuy. Thank you so much for staying in this channel and watching our videos. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep you updated with our latest contents. See you in the next video.